I would hate to go back on any situation I've ever done in my life and regret the way that I represented what I believe in. And that's what I think you should do when it comes to brands and how you feel. Of course, maybe you don't like cuss somebody out online, like be mindful of how you do it. There's a respectful and professional way to go about everything, but your values and your beliefs are yours, and you should absolutely bring that up every single time.
Welcome to Long Run Labs, a weekly podcast from the team behind For the Long Run, telling the stories of those running the outdoor industry where endurance and entrepreneurship meet. And welcome back. We have Demitra Carter joining on Long Run Labs to talk all things creators and creator marketing and running. Demitra, thanks so much for taking some time to chat today.
Awesome. I'm so happy to be here.
Of course. First question is always a tough one. Fortunately, you've been prepping your whole life for this question. And that question is, who is Demitra?
Wow, I have been prepping my whole life, 26 years to be exact. But Demitra Carter is a content creator influencer. But I think at the root of all that, I'm a runner. I'm a track and field runner. I ran track and field my entire life, ran at Baylor University where I was a sprinter. And then after that, I graduated and I got into road running because you don't sprint on the streets, you run distance. So run a marathon, half marathon, working my way down to a 5K, 10K. But running is who I am at its core. And then with that comes content creation. With that comes interviews. With that comes really creating a lifestyle and content for people to watch and feel inspired. And maybe they want to grab a pair of shoes and start running too.
So you ran at Baylor. At what point did running and track find you?
Yeah, I will say it was actually in like middle school. So I feel like all kids growing up, you do all types of sports, and that's what I was doing. So soccer, that was my baby. I was a soccer girl and I played with the boys all the time. And then my parents wanted me to run track. And I was like, why would I run in circles when I can go play with this soccer ball on the field? And then I went to middle school and won. And that's what changed everything. So won my first race and then went to college and kept on winning and making teams and having a good time.
What was it about the process that you started to love? It sounds like you were good, quick, and you were, seeing what it's like to cross the finish line first. What was it about doing that and getting into running versus playing soccer that hooked you pretty quickly?
Yeah, the thing that I love about running, even to this day, is it's an individual sport, but there's some like camaraderie and team aspect to it. Every runner knows what it feels like to hurt. Like when you're running a marathon, whether you're a professional athlete or an amateur or somewhere in between, everybody feels the same pain. It's like it kind of brings you together. Like I know that if you're going on a 13-mile run, it's not going to be easy. And I think that relation part is what brings me back to the sport time and time again. I think for the same with track and field, it's individual sport, but you're on a team at the end of the day. Like to see your teammates grind day after day after day. And whether I win or they win, you might be disappointed that you didn't win, but you saw the work that they put in for it. And I think that's the aspect that I love so much. And with track and with running, what you put into the sport, typically that's what you get back from it. And I think that's what I love, like pushing yourself time and time again. And you might have a bad day, but it's you who kind of has to figure it out. It's not like like basketball. You can't sub somebody in. You need to mentally get it together. And I think it's such a mentally tough sport. And it also brings people together, even though it's so individual. It's like the best of both worlds. So that's why I love it.
Where did the content creation enter the picture? You said you're 26, which means you grew up with content. Right? I'm dating myself, but I'm 35 and I had to request to be invited to Facebook in my freshman year of high school. And people my age will joke that we're the lucky ones because we grew up like pre-social media, but we're not too old to not know how to use it. So I'm curious for you, like, what was it like growing up with social media kind of the whole way through? And at what point did the thought of creating content come into the picture versus taking pictures of your, like if I look back at my like first Instagram post, it's like pictures of like bad pictures of people in a room and like food pictures. And that's what we posted in, 2011 and 2012.
Yeah, throw a filter on it. That's the post.
Exactly. Yeah. And sometimes not even a filter.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I was born in 99, so I call myself a 90s baby, even though like I'm low-key Gen Z still, so I claim both sides. But in college is where it kind of changed because I feel like nowadays everybody's like, oh, content creator is a job, like being an influencer is a job. Even when I was in college, I was like, okay, like you can get followers and make money, but it's not a career path. And when I was in college, that was right before I was in college when NIL passed. So name, image, and likeness passed in college, where you see all these football players making all this money. I was a junior when it became legal. And I have a marketing degree.
Did you have friends on the football team in particular? Because I know Baylor is a good football program, right? And basketball.
Yeah, so I was at Baylor during the national championship for the men and the women, actually, and then football players as well. Yeah, that are in the league to this day. So made a lot of cool friends running on the track team. But during that time, I knew it was about to pass. And I was like, okay, I need to lock in now my social media. So when tiny microphones first started out, I was like the early adopter, like OG girl who had a tiny microphone. And that's where I got my followers from. So I was just running around with a microphone asking football, basketball, track questions, but like at Baylor first. And then it kind of like broadened out to like, okay, this is like a career path that I can do. But yeah, started with the tiny microphone. And luckily Baylor was good at sports. So that's how the followers started going up.
Was there intentionality around it, or was it just fun for you? Or I know you mentioned like you felt like you knew it was about to pass, so there was some proactivity with it. But like, did you have visions of it growing into what it has grown into?
It's hard to say because where that tiny microphone has got me today, I would have never imagined. But I knew there was an opportunity there. So I think a lot of the times I always say this, like in the marketing world, I think ideas have a shelf life. And I hate it, but I think if you have a really good idea, you have to act on it because after a while, it might become an old idea. Like if I pull out a tiny microphone now, it might still be cool, but it wasn't as cool as it was 5 years ago. So I think I knew there was an opportunity and I knew that there was a space to be filled because a lot of these athletes that we see all the time have really cool personalities. And I knew their personalities because I ate in the dining halls with them, like worked out, got treatment together with them. But I'm like, fans and audience members didn't know that like, hey, this athlete's really funny. You just don't know. So like Sydney McLaughlin-Lavroni, I had her juggle like 3 years ago because I knew she could juggle, but nobody ever recorded her juggle. So I was like, hey, like I brought balls for you. Can you juggle? And I recorded and it worked out. So I think I always see the opportunity, but where it has brought me today would have never guessed.
What's been the craziest part of that journey? And then I want to dive more into the tactical part, but like, tell me a fun story about where it's taken you.
Yeah, I'm going to go Boston Marathon actually. So I'm currently at Popfly as Director of Influence, but previously I was at On Running as Global Social Media Manager. And I on wrapped a Boston tram for Boston Marathon. So I'm like, okay, the social team's like, we're going to go have Demitra race the Boston tram. The problem is, I don't know if you've been to Boston, there's like hundreds of trams. We didn't know which one. So we're sitting at this station just waiting, like waiting for trains. We were waiting for like an hour, me and my coworker. We finally find it. We run on. I race the tram, beat the tram. He's like, hey, can you record it one more time? So I get back on the tram, we do the race again. But I think that was one of the moments where I was like to sit there and wait hours and hours and hours for a tram. The Boston Marathon's the next day. I race it once, beat it once, and then to be asked to run it again. And the content is really good on social media website, but like you would have never known that we waited for hours. I raced it twice. Yeah.
That's hilarious. Okay, so I do know that I used to live in Boston and I had an ex-girlfriend who did a fundraising event for the Boston Marathon that was Beat the T. And so we ran from Boston College to Kenmore Square, which I'm guessing that's probably the route that you took. And it's like 2.7 miles and it was like 6:07 pace, but like through traffic and stoplights. So yeah, that's intense.
Wait, so I'm like I was like either praying there wasn't a car, just like jetting in and hoping. I'm like, there's no time to stop.
And this route, 2.7 miles, there were probably 25 intersections that you have to run through, quote unquote, or just like pray that a car isn't turning. But like that's the joke. The T is so slow because every block it has to stop. And so I think we did it as like a betting that like if we beat the T, you have to donate this amount, or if we don't beat it, we have to make a donate or something like that. But yeah, there were like 10 people that did it. I think I was the only one to actually beat it. And but it was like 6:07 pace through traffic.
It's insane. So the first time I beat it, the second time, like as it arrives, I'm like running to it. So Yeah.
Nice. Love it. Okay, so you are the youngest certified World Athletics agent, and you spent time at On as a global social media manager focused on brand storytelling at an international level, right? There's so much there. We're seeing the increase in trail running as it relates to agents. I've had conversations with a lot of track athletes who have told me basically like most, or if not all, track agents, conventional track agents are like crusty old white dudes that aren't great for the sport,
Yeah,
but
pretty much.
they're great at politics. And so you're in it as the youngest and not a crusty old white dude. Talk to me about your desire to get into a space where most people don't look like you, age, gender, and ethnicity.
Yeah, so in college, it kind of ties into this content creation thing. That's always been the goal. Like it was always agency, it was always like law school, like that's always been the goal. And then content creation and running was like a passion of mine and it still is. So going into the space, a lot of athletes look like me and I saw the representation not match. Like that's what it was. And I knew that there was a space to have people who look like you, talk like you, run like you to represent them as well. So that's kind of where it started. I knew in college that's what I wanted to do. And I went ahead and went after it, took my exam, and then took my baby little 2 year break that I'm, or 3 year break that I'm in right now to pursue content creation, but still work in the space and still make those connections. My fiance is a professional athlete as well. And he's the opposite of me. He's still a white male, but I think to have people who are still young to be able to represent him is something that's important in this space. And you're right, it's a lot of white, old, crusty men, but they also are like lending their hand out to me. Not like in a way of like, hey, come work with me, but like, hey, Demitra, we see you in this space. Like, let me know if you ever need anything. And I think that's commendable too. Like, they're not mean. They're really nice to me. And I respect that they're open to diversifying the space. So that's where it started. And that's where I hope it continues to go. And yeah, give me a couple more years after this law degree comes and we'll be hitting the ground running.
What are you wanting to communicate to brands and athletes in 26, 27, 28 ahead of LA in particular? Like, how are you co-creating value between the brand and the athlete? Like, what's resonating today versus what was resonating even 5 years ago?
Yeah, I think a lot of times what you see specifically in track and field, and you don't see it too much in NFL or like your team sports, NBA, is that track and field agents typically just represent you to get into track meets. That's their job, is to get you into track meets, all the politics. That's where it starts and stops. And I think as of now and then leading into 2028, there's a large opportunity to market these athletes, market these women, market these men. There's a way to market them outside of, hey, you can run fast. It's what else can you do? And a lot of these athletes, going back to when I started Tiny Talks, they have personalities, they have things that they like to do, whether that's fishing, drawing, writing, whatever it is. They have these interests and they also have a market of young men and women who look up to them. And I think moving towards 2020, especially for your American athletes, all the brands and sponsorships are going to come into play. And I mean, we think of your big brands like Nike, Adidas, like they're still going to have their goals and missions for the company. But I think of your smaller brands, like maybe it's your local dealership or your local coffee shop or a new restaurant that's opening. A lot of those brands, they have the money put towards marketing and influencer marketing. It's a matter of finding them and connecting them. And I think that's why I came to Popfly, because they connect brands with content creators. It kind of takes out that middleman and gets them more brand deals and more things like that. So I think athletes, it's a really big opportunity for track and field and runners and trail athletes to market themselves outside of just running. Keep running, but you can do some more things too.
I want to press further on the endemic versus non-endemic space. I've been organizing a podcast collective over the last 6 months. I've assembled 24 shows and we've done a bunch of endemic deals and a bunch of non-endemic deals. And some consistencies are starting to pop up. And I'm curious your thoughts on this and like if it's similar to what you're seeing. I see endemic brands able to spend more on an engagement, like on a either CPM basis or like strictly on paying for posts, but a much shorter period or a shorter, smaller overall budget. Whereas the larger brands, broader nutrition stuff, cars, kitchen and home stuff, they have much larger budgets, but the spend is lower. So like the CPM is lower, cost per thousand. First, have you seen similar things? And why do you think there is that delta where the non-running brands are not valuing the niche as much, but they're able to do pilots and expand quite dramatically, whereas the running brands are valuing the niche, but don't have the budget to go super broad or deep.
Yeah, I feel like this is fresh in my head because I was just at TRE, the running event, and everybody's there, like everybody from all over. And I think, yeah, I mean, I see it all the time. And I think for your non running brands, I think it goes back to the whole content creation aspect. Not every runner is a great content creator. You can become one, but that's sometimes people just perform and that's what they do and they don't want to capture it. They just go out, handle business, and go home. And I think that's not the problem necessarily, but that's where you kind of see like the non-running bands be like, okay, should we value this person? I saw there was a professional hurdler a couple years ago. He was like, I don't have a watch deal. And my question was, well, do you post yourself in watches for like a fashion brand to want that? And I think that's where the disconnect is sometimes. And for your running brands, for your bigger running brands, I'll say, I think that it starts from the top down. I think the good running brands, you can tell if there's somebody who knows running in the company. Not all these running brands have people who know running at the top of the company. And if you really look into it, you're like, okay, this makes sense why this looks like this. Sometimes a lot of these running brands, like your big ones, will hire people from the fashion industry because they're going after something different. But you can tell some running brands, they hire people who are former Olympians. Like the world is so different. I think when you have people on your team who once again can understand their audience, like at that level, that's when you see the budgets kind of shift. You see people like fighting for it. And sometimes in these brands, you don't have people fighting for it. And it's really that simple. Like being on the inside, some people just don't fight for certain things.
I was talking to someone earlier today about Amazfit and Allison Lynch, who works at Amazfit. And I said to the guy that I was talking to, he was asking about, he was like, give me your, so Amazfit sponsors my podcast and 5 other podcasts within the collective. And he's like, okay, give me your opinion on the brand. And I was like, honestly, I reached out to Allison because I wanted to work with her. And as long as the product was like half decent, I was willing to give it a try. And the product is great. But she's that person who like cares so much. Her boyfriend is Charlie Lawrence, who has an American record in the 100K and does exceptional work on the track, super long distances. And she's a serious runner herself and just like a super nerd of the sport. And so it's like working with somebody like that on the creator side is such an advantage from where I sit because, like you said, like they're able to fight for things. They're able to push internally on budgets where somebody who doesn't care as much isn't going to. Like it was really important to her. We organized a podcast with Gabby Thomas and Lindsay Hine at TRE. And it was really important to her to like have the right fit for the host and all this stuff. And it was great. And Lindsay nailed it. Gabby nailed it. And it was just like perfect content. But it was only perfect content because the planning was so good and the people involved in the planning were so dialed into like knowing Gabby's story. And Lindsay brought her son, who's like a huge Gabby Thomas fan. And it was just like this perfect scenario of like you have all of the right pieces. There was budget there to make it happen. And Allison pushed on that to make it possible. The room was packed, and then Lindsay put it out to her podcast audience, and many thousands of people got to listen to it outside of just being in that room. And I've been dying to work with Allison for years, and we've like come up short a handful of times at her previous brands where whoever she was reporting into or people making decisions were just like not seeing eye to eye with the potential opportunity or like not wanting to invest in women's sports or whatever it was. And it's just great to be able to work with people who are in such a position of influence like that, who give a shit.
Yeah, that's what I'm like. The people have to care.
Totally. I want to hear more about your thoughts around LA 2028 and specifically the non-endemic brands. I've had a successful partnership with a local Volkswagen dealer here in Boulder, and it's crazy to me that there isn't more of that in places like Austin, Flagstaff, LA, San Francisco, New York, Boston, where we're starting to see it with podcast hosts, Ali Feller with Volvo, Tim Tollefson, I believe, with Ford. He's not a podcast host, but he's an athlete and race director, Mammoth. Bronco did a handful of partnerships with creators like Myrna Valerio and Corey Waltering. I don't think that those are still running, but we're starting to see like car stuff pop up. Kate Courtney with Rivian, probably my favorite partnership. I'm curious your thoughts on like why are we not seeing more of those types of things, and what guidance do you have for athletes who might live in one of these running hubs about how to reach out to a local or OEM like broader brand?
Yeah, this one feels close to me because Hyundai has gave me a Palisade for 2026 through Popfly. So I have a close resonation with car brands right now. But I think for a running influencer, running content creator, or just a runner in general, I would reach out to your local brands first and create a pitch. Canva has the best like one pagers you can imagine, but keep it simple. Like use all of your resources, whether that's Canva, ChatGPT, make it make sense, but then go through and tailor it to you. But make it a one pager, make it a short and sweet email because people get emails all the time and pitch yourself. I've seen it done successfully a few times, or just go into your car dealership because a lot of the times car dealerships, they have other things to do. They're not over here searching for an influencer. They don't have an influencer marketing team for their local car dealership. So that's my piece of advice is just go in and pitch yourself because the likelihood of them saying yes or having some form of budget, especially as we go into this new year, they could find the money. Like, I hate to say that, but like we're going into everybody's fiscal years, either January, March, April, like it's coming up soon. So I think that's my one piece of advice. And then for your bigger brands, I will say if you're going global, your social media brand has to match. I think a lot of times people want to say, oh, I want to work with a luxury brand. Do you create luxury content? And that's not even like being rude. Like, is that the type of content you produce? Personally, I don't produce luxury content. That's not my style. I like being authentic. I like being just running, picking up a phone, setting it down. I'm not shooting on a camera all the time. That's just not what I do. But there are creators who do want to do that. So after you figure out your pitch, make sure your content aligns because whether they read that email thoroughly, they can literally just search your name on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and they can look for themselves. Keep your Instagram, TikTok, make it yourself, do what you need to do, but make sure it matches what you're pitching for.
Why did that partnership happen? Meaning, like, what are they looking for? What's enabling something like that to happen?
Yeah. So Victoria works at Popfly, and Victoria used to work in the car industry, and she's been working her butt off pitching to different car brands to get them in the outdoor industry to partner with content creators. So they want to be more in the outdoor space. They want to show more adventurous activities. So they are sponsoring the Hyundai Palisade for the Director of Influence for the year. And then they also do different trips. So they just did a campaign through Popfly. It was Hyundai gave
to Mammoth, right?
To Mammoth, yes. I almost went, but it was like a 26-hour drive from Austin. I was like, I don't think I can do that. But yeah, to Mammoth. So like those opportunities pop up. And I have no selection process in that, but they're starting to pop up. It's just about the pitch, like why you should be in the outdoor community, why you should be in this adventurous space.
I'm going to add some guidance on top of that. I reached out cold to the local Volkswagen dealer, as I mentioned, through their website form. I dropped them a message and it was like, hey, I'm a runner and creator in the area, curious to know if you're interested in this type of audience, in connecting with this type of audience. And the marketing director responded immediately. It was like, yes, we are. Let's have a meeting. So we met in person. And the reason I'm saying that is like, I didn't even include a pitch deck. I didn't include a 5-paragraph essay of, hey, why I'm awesome. You should be honored to talk to me, right? As you said, these people are so busy. And brevity wins. And so my advice is like, keep it extremely short and ask a question. What I see that people do is they want to brag about their accomplishments, or they want to not brag, they're proud of their accomplishments. But like, there are a lot of accomplished people out there. And these brand marketers and these marketers more broadly are just interested in what helps push their agenda forward. And the conversation I like to suggest people have is like, ask the brand what makes them look good. What would get a pat on the back from their boss? Like, what are the metrics that they're being measured on? And so many brands are so shocked when I ask them these questions. They're like, nobody's ever asked me this. And then they tell you, and it's like they're telling you the recipe for success. And so it's so useful to know, like, okay, it's December 29th, 2026. We've just done a partnership over the last year and it was really successful. Why? And then you just shut up and let them talk. They're giving you the roadmap to success. Do you have any pile-on comments, any additional thoughts on like how to structure those types of asks or those types of like initial discovery type conversations?
Yeah, no, I think what you said was perfect. I think keeping it simple, like get straight to the point, because I get emails all the time about, I'm sure we all get emails, but like if you ever got an email, LinkedIn or something, think about if I was getting this, how much will I read before I stop? But yeah, I think everything that you said is perfect. And I will just add on to that really quick though. You meeting in person, every single local car dealership store that I've ever heard, they end up meeting in person. So just throwing that out there. Make sure you actually live in the city that you're pitching in. This is not the time to be like, oh, I might be moving there soon. They're probably going to want you to pull up.
Yes, agreed.
If this episode is sparking something for you, we'd love to hear it. Share your takeaways on LinkedIn and tag Long Run Labs so we can follow along and join in on the discussion. Your reflections help the ideas go further and might be exactly what someone else needs to see in their feed today.
I want to go back to or continue on something you said earlier, which is you mentioned a track athlete who wanted a watch deal, but they don't post photos of wearing watches, or a runner who wants to do a partnership with an outdoorsy car company, but they don't do outdoorsy things. I'm writing a piece titled Why Fit Compounds. It talks about sacrificing short-term wins for long-term, right? So not taking a quick hit win now that's like, yeah, it's good money, but it's not really organic or authentic, in favor of maybe waiting a little bit longer for something that is more organic and authentic. Why is this so hard for people? And what guidance do you have for people as it relates to thinking about like what brands even to consider partnering with?
Yeah, so when I talk to a lot of friends, content creators, and athletes about like branding themselves, and I always say stay authentic to what you do. You don't record everything that you do. You can't record everything you do, but you don't typically record every single thing that you do. So my piece of advice is always write down the 3 things that you want. If somebody looks at your page, what do you want it to communicate? It could be whatever words you choose. And I think starting from there and then working your way backwards, I'm a fan of writing things down. Like I write things like type things down. I don't actually physically write, but I like put everything down that like pops in my head. So when it comes to content creation, once you get your 3 ideas, I like to break it down into content pieces. So whether that's photos, reels, whatever you do, like right now, the photos with like the text on the screen are popping off for me. I might need to start doing more of that. So those are the things that I would do. So write down what your brand is. And then from there, once you have your brand, go into different content pieces that you can do. Now, some people like to go and do vision boards. I'm not a vision board girly. Maybe I might become one, but putting down different pictures of like what brands you want to work with. Once you do that, go to their Instagram and align it. Like figure out what they do. And kind of going back to your question of if you can't actually ask the metrics, go look at what they post. It probably aligns with what they do. So for example, the way On posts, the way Nike posts are different. Like figure out what they go for, what they do, what they're looking for, and then align it, write it down and figure out how you can not copy their content, but do what they do. Like Nike never has an ad selling a hoodie. They do inspirational content. Like that's not what they do. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, it does. I was listening to a really interesting podcast this morning, single track podcast hosted by Finn Melanson with Jeff Pelletier as the host. He's a ultra endurance athlete and YouTuber with over 100,000 subscribers. And he does long form content. And they were outlining David and Megan Roche and their content approach. And so for those who aren't familiar, David has been setting course records in 100-mile races, and he and Megan have been coaching for the last decade plus. And so they have a podcast and a Patreon. And so Jeff and Finn were talking about their content strategy, whether or not it was intentional or it just happens to be this way. But it's like a funnel, and they have their YouTube long form stuff that gets hundreds of thousands of views as kind of like top of funnel discovery that is made up of these 30 to 60 minute long form pieces of content that are like Leadville 100-mile course record in 15 hours, and it's a 15-hour journey in 45 minutes. Then he does a bunch of like training videos and breaking down workouts and things like that, and then down to some Instagram posts, as well as their own podcast and a Patreon that they release weekly as well, a Patreon episode, all the way down to their coaching as kind of like bottom of the funnel, which I disagree. I don't think their coaching is bottom of the funnel. I think Patreon is bottom of the funnel, but I digress. The whole system is supported by the feed as a sponsor, the long form content. It enables them to work with a director and videographer who spends all of his time creating content for the Roaches, or for David more particularly. And these videos are probably like tens of thousands of dollars to produce each. And so I'm just guessing that the sponsorship with the feed is close to 6 figures, mostly going towards content production because the content fuels the rest of the engine. I'm dying to have a conversation with David about this. Like, he's my coach. So I really want to go long form with him on like, was any of this intentional, or did you kind of just stumble into all of this? But anyway, I'm curious your thoughts on, and if this is an opportunity to look at brands. And I'm also curious as to why the feed might choose to do something like this, but like spend a bunch of money to support top of funnel content where they're a company or a marketplace to buy sports nutrition. So in theory, David talking about high carb fueling, 150 grams an hour, like that nets back to buy your carbs from the feed. So in theory, there's a nice impact of that. But I'm curious your take on a big brand like that or a brand like that supporting a piece of the funnel for a content creator or athlete and the role that that has. And if you think we might see more of that, and I have more follow-up thoughts, but I want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, no. So two things. One, I think we'll see more of it, especially on YouTube. But my like, not hot take, but like my semi hot take, I think we'll start seeing more of that long form content roll over to TikTok a little bit. We're starting to see it now, but like in 2026, I think we'll see it roll over there and then we'll see that more because I think right now, once you break things up like that, long form content,
You got to lock in and watch it. Sit down, put the remote down.
exactly. And I think when you do that, TikTok.
But are people going to watch long form content on TikTok?
It's already happening. You see it a lot with story times, like part one, and it's like 10 minutes long. And I don't know about you, I watch all the part ones and my friends watching, they're like at 1 million views. So I'm like, just the numbers are showing that people are starting to tap into it if the story's good or if the content is good. But there's a lot of part 1 through 50s, 1 through 20s of story times on TikTok that have been popping off, especially towards the end of the year that I've noticed. I don't see it on Instagram much. That's like, it's very platform specific. That's why I think your YouTube long form, you might see roll over. And I've seen a lot of creators start literally taking their 30-minute YouTube video and break it up on TikTok. And people just set their phones down and just scroll and watch. Like the Outdoor Boys, I'd only watch the Outdoor Boys on TikTok. That sounds crazy, but I never watched it on YouTube.
What is in it for the brand?
I think the brands have such a good opportunity. I saw it there's this show by Drewski called Could Have Been Love. I don't necessarily recommend it, but he had Cash App sponsoring it. I don't think that aligns with Cash App's values at all because Cash App also sponsored Athlos. They're totally different markets. But I think like when you see, I think it just gives brand recognition. I think some of these brands, as we get towards like this advertised to Gen Z era, like day after day after day, you start to see brands like, yes, maybe it doesn't align necessarily perfectly with their values. That's my piece of advice still. If you're going to pitch yourself, you should align. But if you're big enough, if it doesn't align, but it still is kind of in their market of, hey, this is still our service that we provide and it could get somebody to buy into it, that's when I think it works out. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I've seen some one-offs happen, but that's one of them for sure is Cash App.
Yeah, I really like the Cash App. Yeah, I guess it was Athlos where they said they're going to pay athletes like as soon as they cross the finish line via Cash App. Like that is an integration that makes tons of sense.
And it did. I asked. I was there when Tara literally turned her phone around and it was in her account.
Rest in peace, Grand Slam track.
Yeah, RIP. Yeah, hope they get paid.
Hope so. Back to the long form piece, YouTube versus Instagram. For a while, I felt like YouTube was kind of like an annoying thing that I couldn't tell if it was like something I should focus on or something I shouldn't focus on. But I continued to put effort into it over the last year and I'm finally over 1,000 subscribers. And I'm more bullish than ever before on the utility of YouTube. I like telling stories. I like talking, as you can tell. And I just find the medium like really interesting where at the same time I met with Jeff and he was talking me through some tips and he was like, you have to be interesting in the first 3 seconds and on Instagram the first 1 second. And it's just like, it's also crazy to me that you have to compete for attention in like that, like as soon as it takes to snap your fingers. How do we reconcile the need for immediate attention grabbing with good storytelling? What's working for you and what's working for the brands that you're working with?
Yeah. And it's insane how short people's attention spans are. And you're 100% right. You have like a second, if that, to capture somebody's attention. And it kind of sucks a little bit for your like true, authentic storytellers because sometimes your story could be really good. If you didn't have a good hook within the first 0.3 seconds.
And title and thumbnails.
On-screen text, like you need to figure something else out. But yeah, it's a little sad. I'm like, because there's some really cool things that people have to tell, but you have to know social media a little bit or a lot of it really to like make it make sense. But I think that's why it's interesting that all the platforms are so different. I think YouTube, you're 100% correct. There's a guy, I can't think of his name, but he decided to not do any cool thumbnails. His whole content now was like calm and scenic. There are no words on his thumbnails. It's just a picture. I have it somewhere in my phone because I fact checked it. He spoke at OMS. Outdoor Media.
Yeah.
Yes, I think you know who I'm talking about. And he was right. And it was fascinating because that's not what you normally see. You normally need a good thumbnail. You normally need a good title. And his was not that. It was an hour long of just vibes. vibes and silence and calmness and peace. And I think you're going to start to see people lean more towards that as we go on through the year, because right now everybody's scrolling. And that's why I think TikTok, you're seeing long form content perform better now, is because people are like, I don't want to scroll as much. Let me just like set my phone down and wash dishes, like do something while I'm still on TikTok. Because if you're still doom scrolling, but it feels like you're getting something else done because you can now multitask with the 10-minute story time. So Instagram is still in an interesting place for me. I hate that it's not hate, that's a strong word. It is my largest platform, but I can understand TikTok and YouTube. Instagram is all over the place for me. And Instagram, I think photos, they go back and forth between photos and videos. I think they're trying to copy all the other platforms, but whatever they're pushing at that point in time, I think for photos, what I'm starting to see now, not only for myself, but other people, on-screen text for photos is popping off. Like I have no other words for that. It's doing so good. Regular carousels are still doing good, but like it still has to be, the first photo has to be good. And I think your first photo matters, or have some on-screen text to keep the viewer in. Hooks are all about keeping people in. And I think that's what you're starting to see for the photo carousels with text.
So I have two podcasts, and with one of them, For the Long Run, we do 2 posts a week, and with Long Run Labs we do 1 post a week. And so previously I was doing all 3 of those posts as like 1-minute video clips, and we transitioned one of the posts a week to be on-screen text carousels, and they're crushing. And I don't know what it is about them, but it's like you always have to be testing against the algorithm and seeing what works. And I'm like, if you had told me that this post was going to be seen by more people than this really interesting thing that you just need to spend 60 seconds to get through, I would say you're nuts. But that's where we are. Were you talking about the guy that was talking at OMS about the like multi-hour long running, like
Compilations.
hiking compilations? Yeah, he had one
Yes.
video that had like 2 million views, and he made $114,000 from it.
I'm not saying I don't doubt anybody, but I was like, let me go look this up myself. And I was like, oh, I'm a believer now. Like you sold me. The numbers are there.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it just, but it's like, I get it. Like, I go to this Middle Eastern restaurant in Golden, Colorado, and they have this guy playing like 5 different instruments in the desert. And it's like, it's enthralling. It's like, I have to watch this. And I go to this restaurant and I sit there and I just like watch, and I looked it up and it has millions of views. And it's just this guy playing. I'm looking up what the name of the restaurant is. I'm blanking on it, but I want to send people to it. It's just in a strip mall, and the food is so good, but they play that this like music is great.
Where you been?
Yeah, I've been a bunch of times. Aladdin Mediterranean Grill in Golden on South Golden Road. You should go there. It's fantastic. What type of... Yeah, anyway, it's very good. But the point is, every time I go in there, it's this one dude playing 5 instruments, and it's got millions of views. And this guy is probably making, $10 every time I come in and watch him for that period of time. What role do podcasts have? Podcasts and even email. But first, I want to talk about podcasts.
We're rolling what? Like content creation or?
Yeah, content creation, and in the discussion around short form attention grabbing content versus long form storytelling. And like we've been talking for 44 minutes and people are still listening. Shout out to people who are listening. That's much more than 3 seconds.
Yeah, thank you. The thing about podcasts and shows is I think the best thing to do, and everybody does it, is to put it on both YouTube, but also like your Apple Podcast, Spotify podcast. Meet people where they are and where they're able to listen. Because me personally, like I always upload all of the shows and podcasts that I do directly to YouTube. But me personally, I listen to podcasts when I drive. Like I never sit and listen to it. So I think reaching both audiences that way is one. And then two, going back to the way that you cut up content, I think when you have 45 minutes, an hour worth of a show, you can cut, reuse, clip it, make a segment of it, like cut a portion of it, make a segment of that on YouTube, cut some reels out, make photos, add some quote text. Like I think there's so many ways to reuse things. Yeah, once you have long form content, whether it's a show, podcast, or just long form period, I think there's so many opportunities to cut and create content. My only piece of advice is never oversaturate your own feed. So post your long form and do what you need to do, but be mindful of posting too much sometimes can hurt you. Not on TikTok though, but other platforms I think it can hurt.
I've heard people talking about podcasts, particularly video podcasts, as like a content creation engine, right? You can get on and talk for 45 minutes, and then all of a sudden you have dozens of clips that you can use on LinkedIn and all these different like thought starters in addition to grabbing people's attention for the full conversation. I'm curious your thoughts on LinkedIn, and like, is that part of your overall strategy and day-to-day considerations, or is that kind of a whole different beast?
Yeah, so this is crazy. LinkedIn was like on the bottom of my totem poles until like a month ago. I was like, let me lock in really quick because there's a lot of opportunity there. So, as of like, I think literally a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, I started posting weekly. And I follow a lot of people who post consistently on LinkedIn. And to see the recognition and the reward that they get from being so consistent on that platform is definitely there. I candidly don't know much about LinkedIn and the metrics and stuff because I'm like a month in, but ask me in like 6 months and I'll have some better answers for you.
What about B2B marketing? What role do software brands or other more B2B focused brands have in the influencer marketing space?
Yeah, I think as we get into 2026 and leading into 2028, I think you'll see this boom. I say that for everything, but I feel like leading into 2028, especially for US brands, like it's going to increase. The market's going to be there, not only for your American consumers, but like your international consumers, because now they're going to start paying attention. I cannot tell you how many things that I was locked into for Paris. I have nothing to do with France, but I went twice that year. And that's where my world was at. So I think you'll see an increase in, when I say everything, that sounds so cliche, but it's going to boom because I worked at Team USA, USOPC back in 2022, 23, and they were already thinking about LA 28. Mind you, Paris hadn't happened. So that's just to say that like everybody's minds are on it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that we see some of these major software companies, like they want to leverage athletes in like speaking to their company, or they sponsor major races because they want to give entries to New York to their top clients. And if that helps them retain a customer, $200 million a year valuation or $50 million of revenue from that customer, like these types of things are worth the 100K sponsorship or $500,000 sponsorship if they're helping them retain customers by just like giving them an entry to a race, let alone like the marketing that comes from the sponsorship itself. So I think there are plenty of different ways that these companies can get involved in a B2B space. Can you think of an example of something that was particularly creative around Paris, or something you've heard about ahead of LA? Like the Cash App example of like something that's like really intuitive. There's like, damn, I can't believe I didn't think of that. Like it makes so much sense.
I'm trying to think. I'm like, Paris was like, I was on the ground at Paris. So you think my memory would be better than what it is. I know I already said Cash App and Athlos. Okay, I'm going to say this one. Take it with a grain of salt, and I hope to see them in more spaces. But this is the first one that has popped in my head. I'm going to say on the track and field running thing. It's not Paris 2024. The collab that I liked the most was Drip Water and Grand Slam Track. Drip Water's in more than spaces besides running. Just throwing that out there, y'all. But I think seeing Drip Water, they sponsored not only like the track meet, but they sponsored drip checks. So you know how like athletes do tunnel walks? There's no sponsorships for that like NBA, NFL, but they did it for Grand Slam. And I thought it was a really cool concept. And I'm surprised that we don't see more brand sponsorships for like leagues when they do their like outfit walk-ins. But Drip Check, they have the name Drip. Yeah, they're based in London. But that's one of the ones I'm like, oh, this makes sense. I would love to see it done again. They do a lot of stuff, I believe, in like MMA, but I would love to see them come back to running.
Cool. I want to refer back to a conversation I had with Erin Bailey, who's the owner of Momentum, an agency that works with female creators mainly. We had a conversation around like taking a stand on social, and she works with women and non-binary folks who like stand for something. And as part of her services, she talks about how to deal with the backlash that people get when they take a stand on something. I was having a conversation with a couple friends on the run this weekend, and we were talking about how no matter what you say, you're going to piss off 50% of people or some large percentage of people. And if you don't say something, you're also going to piss people off. And I've had brand partnerships not renewed because I've said I've taken a stand for things that were meaningful for me. And these are brands I liked. I even heard from some of them that they like wanted to continue, like that they agreed with what I was saying, but it's not part of their brand fit or brand ethos to take stands like that. From where you sit in both the law background and agent hat on, in addition to your role as the director of influence and being a Black woman, like how do you think about these types of things as both the professional hat and the personal hat, and like needing this to be a sustainable way to put food on the table?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. When I first entered this space, I often was like, I'm not saying anything. Like, I'm going to have my own thoughts. Like, I'm just going to be neutral as can be. And I even signed one of my many jobs that I've had. There was a contract that I couldn't say anything political on my own personal social media. Mind you, that's not what I was paid to do. And I signed the contract, but like looking back, I'm like, why did I sign that? Like you're losing a piece of yourself when you say like, oh, I won't speak out about anything on my personal account. So my one piece of advice is if you get that contract, don't sign it or ask to like reword it somehow. But outside of that, I look up to a lot of people like Allison Felix, for example. And I was a little younger when she left Nike. Like there was no payment for women who were pregnant. Like all of when that whole thing happened, that's the moment where I realized it doesn't matter how big you are and how big the company is. You might be expendable. And it's important to still stand up for what you want. Because if you're going to go down believing your beliefs and fighting for what's right and paving the way for the next person behind you. And that's exactly what she did. So that's what I try to do day after day. And that's what I advise everybody else to do as well is to, I would hate to go back on any situation I've ever done in my life and regret the way that I represented what I believe in. And that's what I think you should do when it comes to brands and how you feel. Of course, maybe you don't like cuss somebody out online, like be mindful of how you do it. There's a respectful and professional way to go about everything, but your values and your beliefs are yours, and you should absolutely bring that up every single time.
What does the lawyer version of you have to say about that conversation?
Yeah, when I graduate with my JD, then I'll come back with the actual official version. But like in my head right now, and I hate to say this because I wouldn't do it, but I'm also where I'm at now. But I do think there's a level of like think twice about what you retweet and repost in this day and age. And if you're in this world where you're like, oh, I want to be a content creator, want to be an influencer, especially if you're young, you might change your mind on something in a couple of years. Like be mindful of what it is. And I'm not saying listen to your mom and dad for everything that you do, but I think like taking like a piece of advice from somebody else around you and see what they say. Because if you have a good support system, if somebody says like, oh, I don't think you should do that, maybe you shouldn't do that. I ran for Every Woman's Marathon for my first marathon. They sponsored me and Milk sponsored me. And I didn't know, Peter was not happy. Like they were not happy. Like I pulled up, I said, oh, I was like, I am so sorry. But that's a moment that I chose. There was no need for me to speak. Like they were leaving hate comments, everything like not just me, but like everybody. Like those are the moments where I'm like, okay, as much as I don't want you yet, like they were in the way of the marathon. It was like a whole thing. Like as much as this, like I wasn't like, I didn't agree with it. I was never going to go out on my Instagram and go against them. That's not what I'm here to run my marathon. I respect you doing what you do, but like, there's like, I don't know. I think there's levels to it, but I also asked people first. I was like, what do you think? Like I asked Every Woman's Marathon because they're familiar with it because the agency that they worked with, they're like, yeah, Demitra, they actually come to all of our events. I said, oh, okay. So like, I think there's a world where you should also get advice, especially when you're coming up. Now, when you feel that you're like at a place to make your own level-headed decisions, do it. But I always ask for advice too. That was 2 years ago. And I still asked before I did anything because I was also not confused. I was shocked.
Yeah, you're showing up to a marathon and getting protested by. Anyway, fascinating. I'm working on a partnership with Pioneer Pastures, who is at, I think, Every Woman's Marathon. And so, yeah, good to know. I should be aware of that's the thing. It's like we have a bunch of dietitians that want to promote this product and service because it's an easy way to get protein and post-workout stuff. And so it's checking that box. It's great and helps with digest, like all these things. And then to my point earlier, like no matter what you say, half the people will disagree with you.
Yeah, that's the short version. Yeah.
Love it. All right. So you have a very nice podcast, Mike. Tell us why.
Yes. So I previously hosted a show called The Meetup. It was all things track and field. And as of next week, first week of January, a new show coming out called Hold That Thought, all things that you could think of. So the concept is still stay in the sports world, but also dive into a little bit more lifestyle, but branch outside of running. So get your trail running, your track, your road running still, but also get your field athletes, football, basketball, and everybody in between from coaches, WAGs, you name it.
What I love about that is you're picking a lane, but the lane is stuff you're interested in. And I think when you're creating content I had this conversation with someone who's got 1 million followers and he just launched a men's skincare brand, Sahil Bloom. And he was like, everyone was like, oh yeah, this is the thing people are talking about. You build the distribution and then you monetize it. He's like, not why I did this. Like I was customer one and I wanted to be customer one and I'm making this for me. And it's great that, a bunch of haters hyped up the launch. It was wonderful for virality. Like 3 million people saw the first tweet about it. He sold a lot from the one tweet. He's like, I created this for me and I want it for me. And I think there's so much value in not doing things selfishly, but like understanding why you're doing it. And you could just feel the difference and feel the energy when, like, Aisha Pratt-Lear is another example of an athlete turned content creator. She hosts a podcast now, or has been hosting a podcast, but like she's very good at hosting that podcast. And it's clear that she's just, shooting the shit with a friend. And it just so happens to be that, thousands of people want to tune in as well. And so I guess that's my takeaway, make stuff that you want to consume. And if there's brand fit, great.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Now, we'll align later, but I'm I have such a passion about this one, so it should be fun.
Cool. Is there anything else you wanted to chat about today?
Oh, I'm just going to do a selfish plug for Popfly. If you're a creator and you want some brand deals, sign up on Popfly. It's free. We connect brands with creators all throughout the year. If it's ski season, ski brands, so on and so forth, you get the vibes.
I've gotten a bunch of blackstrap apparel from there. I just got a pair of gloves. I love the long underwear and top layers. And yeah, it's such an intuitive program. I work with Superaffiliate as a sponsor of this podcast on the brand side. And so it's really cool to have something that's on the creator side that you can just sign up and see all these brand deals. And it's not just product exchanges, right? Many of these are well-paid partnerships. And this model is fascinating, right? The brand comes to you. Actually, can you explain it?
Yeah. So the way Popfly is set up, we will reach out to brands and brands will come to us and say, hey, this is our campaign for this month. We want X amount of creators. This is what we're willing to pay. And then the brands or creators from that point, once you have your account, you simply go and you click apply if you feel that that's something that you want to do. We have over 10,000 plus creators and we have so many different outdoor brands coming. And when I say outdoor brands, it means everything from bags to clothes to Hyundai, the car, you name it. There's so many different opportunities and new ones coming almost every week, bi-weekly. So yeah, we have a little bit of everything. We connect all the people doing all the things.
Amazing. Demitra, it's been a blast. We got connected via a connection. So I'm glad the conversation.
We have all followers too, which is hilarious.
We have a lot of mutuals. Yeah. Stoked we were able to chat, and we'll see you out there.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Long Run Labs. If you like this episode, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who's building something of their own. We'll be back next Tuesday with more stories at the intersection of endurance and entrepreneurship from the people shaping the outdoor industry in ways big and small. Until then, keep showing up, keep asking questions, and we'll see you out there. This show is produced by Dylan Delaney of Delaney Video LLC, with musical composition by Brian Walters of Single Track Sound, and managed overall by Emily Holland of Wild Poppy Creative.